Hello and welcome to this ET Now special. I'm Nayantara Rai. Today we're in conversation with the telecom regulator, Mr. Arish Sharma. Thank you for joining us here on ET Now.
Thank you.
We're getting this interview at a very, might say, a timely occasion. It doesn't take a wizard to figure out that, telecom is going through a very different and a difficult period of time. Recently, we had the Finance Minister Arun Jaitley in conversation with ET Now, where he said this government and the regulator will not preside over the death of the telecom sector. Mr. Arish Sharma, as the regulator, what is your role to play during this time?
Well, my role also, I completely agree with the Honorable Finance Minister. We certainly are, sort of concerned with, and we certainly are for a healthy growth of the industry. Besides, there are, of course, other objectives also, which is the, consumer protection, quality of service, etc., etc. So I think its overall regulation will continue to be in the direction which looks at transparency, consumer protection, quality of service, healthy competition, growth. Yeah. These are broad objectives.
You have an unenviable job, Mr. Sharma. And like you said, at one hand, you have to ensure that the consumer base grows, there's higher penetration of mobiles, broadband, etc. But at the other hand, you also have to ensure that the balance sheets of the telecom companies remain healthy, that this remains a viable sector, that we don't see any NPAs, insolvency. How are you striking a balance between the two?
Well, let me put it this way. It is not the regulator who runs business. Business is run by the entrepreneurs, the people who are there, and I'm sure they are looking after their interest, and they are looking at they are smart people. So I really don't have to kind of, Certainly, TRAI has been very conscious of the fact that there are certain areas where we could certainly provide help to the telecom companies, and TRAI has given recommendations in the past. We have reiterated them after we had a meeting with them on 15th of June as to what can be done in order to provide help to the telecom industry.
So what could be the new measures that we may see from the telecom regulator?
Well, I don't want to reiterate those issues. This is a conversation this is a communication which we have given to the government as to what could be done. So I don't want to really, talk.
Okay, because the government has also set up an interministerial group which has members from Finance Ministry and the Telecom Ministry. Have you made recommendations to this group?
Not to this group. We have made, we have sent letter. We had a meeting on 15th of June to discuss this issue of stress in the telecom sector. And there were a number of suggestions which emerged, and we also had made recommendations earlier on many of these issues. So therefore, we sort of combined everything and then gave the recommendation to the DOT, reiterated those recommendations which we had given.
So you do concede that there is stress in the sector?
No, it's not a question of conceding or not conceding. It's stress or those balance sheets. It's a question of interpretation. How do you sort of take that position? But the broad thing is that yes, there are high levels of debts and other issues, and there are issues which need resolution.
Okay. You also said that these business people are very smart. The companies are very smart. So do you think that's why we're seeing the kind of consolidation that we are seeing? From 14, you're down to what, 4, 5? Is that the smart move?
No, I'm not saying it's a smart move. I don't want to comment on what is happening on the business side of it, and obviously consolidation and other decisions are the business decisions of the companies. So I don't want to comment on that. I'm only saying that these companies are very well professionally run companies.
Yeah.
And India has seen a real growth in the telecom sector. This is one of the very, very vibrant sector where we now have 1.2 billion customers. Yeah. So it's a very vibrant sector, and I'm sure it will grow.
But as a regulator, do you sometimes worry that the kind of consolidation you're seeing, and I'll ask you why I'm asking this, the freedom to choose, the number of options are now obviously not as many as that were available to the customers. So is that healthy or not healthy? Where do you
Well, I'm not an economist, or I'm not really, and I don't want to really, comment on as to whether consolidation of this order, that order is good or bad. I don't want to get into that. Yeah.
Okay, so you don't want to get into that, but you do think that the customer today has enough choices?
Certainly, customer has enough choices. Yeah,
Just not as many as before.
doesn't make. I mean, that's not really. You know, it's just a question of whether you have 20 choices or 5 choices. So if that's not really the, you know, ultimately the customer should benefit.
You know, you said that you've had conversations with the telecom operators beginning since June. I've covered some of them, many hours they lasted. There have been open houses as well. I think another problem that whether it's you or the interministerial group is facing is that this industry is split right in the middle, the incumbents versus the new operator. Does that make the job much harder? Because for every measure that the government or you may want to come out, someone is already talking against it.
No, I think I am, you know, as an authority, as a regulator, we are not really so much concerned about who is against it and who is for it, because any regulatory measure which you take, many times it happens that it benefits the industry as a whole. Many times it also happens that it does not benefit everybody equally, or some people get adversely impacted. But I think that's not really the, you know, we should not consider that, we should not give that as an importance. We should give importance to the fact that the measure is an appropriate measure, it's a right measure, it's a just measure. That's what we should be
So
concerned
that's been your
about.
litmus test, not how many it impacts, but that fact that it's just.
I mean, that's the, you know, corollaries will happen. These are the consequences of any step which we take. But what I'm saying is that should not be our primary consideration. Our primary consideration should be the rightness or the correctness of the measure.
So, you know, while we're talking about the measures, etc., there have been various reports, and I just want to get your views on it, that the interministerial group might, you know, cut spectrum usage charge, may defer license fees, rationalize the USO fund levy. You know, and spectrum is, of course, the most important raw material, the most expensive one for the telcos. As a regulator, do you have any opinions on that? And the reason I ask you this is because, like I said, for every measure that's recommended, there are those crying against it.
No. We have, on all these issues which you mentioned, we have given our recommendations to the government. Whether it's a question of deferring the payments for the spectrum, whether reducing the spectrum usage charges, USO fund levies, all these things have already been recommended by the government. So the views are already expressed.
So you're in favor of all of these moves?
No, I'm not making a general comment on that. We have already recommended various, you know, sort of.
Would you like to tell us some of them?
No, I don't. I mean, I don't remember exactly as to which percentage we reduced. But broadly, we have recommended for reduction in the license fee, reduction in the SUC, you know, sort of in, the payment kind of rescheduling of payments, in the sense not rescheduling the one which is already there, but the last spectrum which you know, auction which took place, we had recommended that, you know, you should structure the payments as you go basis. You know, for example, you take 2 years payment and then you take 1 year payment as you go along. That's the way it should be done, so that you pay as you use.
Can I be cheeky and ask you what feedback you got from the DOT on these recommendations?
No, I don't get feedbacks from the
What
government.
do they tell you? Do they accept them?
No, they have not accepted, obviously, because the last time the recommendation, the spectrum auction took place, so the terms were not really the way we had kind of recommended.
Obviously, in these troubling times, I'm guessing no one's thinking of a new spectrum auction.
Why not? The government has asked us for you know, recommending and making recommendations, and we are issuing a consultation paper to gauge, to really take the views of the stakeholders about the spectrum auction, next spectrum auction.
It could be this financial year?
Well, I can't say about the timing, but I think we are, you know, in a week's time, we are issuing a consultation paper
on a spectrum auction. But Mr. Sharma, you know, at a time when you, for example, even have the chairperson of the country's largest bank, SBI, raising and red flagging the high debt of the telcos, telecom operators on their own coming to you and the DOT saying we need a helping hand. Is this the right time for an auction?
No, I'm not, you know, this is a consultation paper we are issuing at the request of the DOT, right? Now, whether it's the right time or not, what should be the reserve price, what should be the timing, those issues will come as a result of consultation. How can I a priori make that statement or judgment as to whether it's the right time or not?
I want to now come to you about one contentious topic between the operators, and I'm sure you can guess what I'm coming to. I'm coming to interconnect usage charges. where do you stand right now at 14 paise? The incumbents say it's too cheap, it should be double of what this is. The new player, RelJio, says it should be scrapped altogether. You've had, very long consultations on this. You've come out with a discussion paper. What is the TRAI stance when it comes to this particular levy?
Well, TRAI stand will be known in about a couple of weeks' time, and then you will certainly declare that. As of now, we have had a long consultation. In fact, we started the consultation process about a year back in August of 2016. We have had open house discussions. We have had a lot of comments and counter comments on that. And now we are working on the process. And we will be coming out with a recommendation in about 2-3 weeks' time.
You have consistently been cutting the interconnect usage charges. The stance of the regulator before the Supreme Court has also been that it should be at zero or there should be bill and keep. Could that possibly change given the fact that some incumbents are going through a tough time?
All these inputs are there with the TRAI. What we said before the Supreme Court, what each player has said, what other stakeholders have conveyed to us, what other, customer, everybody, all the stakeholders, their comments are there with us. Their counter comments are with us. We also had a one-day full workshop on this issue, specifically devoted to various methodologies used, and and the operators did give different views of theirs. So we will take all of these into consideration and come up with a final recommendation, final order rather.
Everything has to be just, and it also has to strike a balance between consumers and the health of the telecom companies. That's why it was an educated guess.
Well, I mean, it's your conclusion. You can draw any conclusion out of it.
I want to also ask you something personally. Do you feel bad when you see that you're caught up in this war between the incumbents and the new player, scathing press releases that, the new one is monopolistic, being allowed to be monopolistic? Did you get hurt?
You see, it's a free country and people are free to express their views. And obviously, those whose interests are getting affected, they will try to build, build consensus or build opinion in their favor. So there's nothing wrong with that. That's okay.
So you're thick-skinned to all these all this? Now when you look back, you didn't have the advantage of hindsight last year. Now that you do you think that maybe RelJio was allowed to have those discounts, the freebies, for far too long?
Let's not get into the issues which are already sub judice. As you know, these issues are sub judice and are being agitated in the court of law. So therefore, it will not be proper for me to give any opinion on those.
So you don't want to even apply the power of hindsight?
No. I mean, these are still the issues being debated in the court of law.
Okay, so while we don't talk about those particular issues, as the regulator, you've also had come out with a discussion paper talking about tariff regulation. Now that we have seen a launch of a new player, etc., are you going to perhaps tighten regulations when it comes to freebies and discounts? Because we've seen if there's one disruptor, it has a cascading impact across balance sheets.
Well, the paper which is there, which is basically going to establish the principles of tariff. It's not going to, assign and impute any values to it. That's number one. So one is, establishing certain basic principles. Okay. Some basic principles TRAI already has since last about 14 years, which is principle of forbearance in the tariff. Then recently there was an opinion by some operators to say that we should fix what is called the floor tariff. And the idea was that because there were some operators who allegedly are offering below price, below their cost, and therefore the offering below cost on a sustainable basis is not a good idea. And that is why this idea came that we should fix the floor prices.
Which has now been rejected by you.
Which is not rejected by me, which is rejected by everybody else. I said, let's discuss this idea, and we called a meeting of all the telecom service providers. And at the end of that 2.5 hours meeting, we decided that, all of us decided together, not really the regulator. So to say that regulator
it was not unilateral.
Rejected a demand will not be proper. And we all decided that it's not a good idea to have floor prices. So what this paper is going to do is to basically come up with broad principles of tariff fixation.
And will it tighten regulations on promotional offers, discounts?
No, that I can't say honestly, because
Is it even under consideration?
no, whatever is there in the paper is under consideration. Whatever comments have come are under consideration, because you should remember that the way TRAI functions is that, you know, we consult everybody, and people are ready to, you know, people are allowed to give whatever views they want to give with
Okay, let me put it this way. Have recommendations come for more watertight regulations when it comes to promotional offers?
No, I will not be able to classify them into these kinds of watertight compartments, as you say. What I can say is that we have received recommendations, and we are now formulating the broad principles.
You've also received complaints that telecom operators are being arbitrary, offering discounts to those customers that may want to migrate to another operator. Therefore, it's very arbitrary in nature. And I do know that from 1st of August, you've told everybody tariffs have to be made online. Is that the reason, so that there is, you know, there can be no arbitrary offerings?
I think these two are, you know, separate questions, separate issues. One issue is that we got the complaints which you referred to in the first part of your question. We actually reiterated some of the instructions which were given, guidelines which were given about 7-8 years back, in 2008, 9 years back. So we did not, you know, issue any new guidelines. We just told them that the tariff offerings have to be transparent, have to be non-discriminatory, and, you know, they have to follow certain basic principles.
I also want to get your views on the new JioPhone that is coming out. We've already seen, you know, certain incumbents say
I have not seen the JioPhone.
I don't think besides the AGM, many people have seen it. Only those who were there at the AGM have seen it. But have they shared their tariff plans with you? The fact that it's going to be effectively zero, is being bundled with free voice, etc.
I'm not aware, and as I explained to you, there are 2,000 tariff plans which come every month, and they don't come to me. So they come to the authority and they'll process it. I have not aware.
But have you got any objections from other telcos on the JioPhone as yet?
Not that I remember.
Okay, so maybe you have not got. Because the reason I was also asking you, this is the pre-booking has started. So now, you know, anybody can get on the Rel JioPhone, pre-book their phone, they have to give their email address, they have to give their number, etc. So pre-booking has started. So is Jio then doing that without sharing the tariff plan?
No, I mean, I don't think that the selling of the mobile phones really comes under our...
Because it's being bundled with tariffs. That's what I was asking. It's a new domain for you also, maybe.
Oh, I'm not really aware. I mean,
okay.
I had queried my people, and they said, yes, there have been a lot of bundled plans in the past. But not that I'm really aware about the details of it. But we'll cross the bridge when we come to it.
Because there's also an issue that is Rel Jio skirting GST, because, you know, of the whole security of 1,500 rupees for 3 months. And are you concerned that can only be for a Rel Jio customer, and that therefore the choice will be limited?
Well, as I said, that first of all, the proposal has not come to me. Secondly, we will cross the bridge when we come to it. We'll examine all these questions whenever they are brought to our notice.
So physical delivery may not be possible of the phone without them coming to you?
I mean, let me not.
Okay, fair enough. I won't.
All these issues.
You know, we're also seeing, if I may call it, a regulatory turf war between you and the CCI chairman. There have been exchanges of letters between you and Mr. Sikri, the CCI chairman. So you are in charge of predatory pricing, of tariffs. The CCI says keep us in the loop. What is your message? Because who should a telco go to?
I have no message. And typically, I do not discuss with channels or with press the communications which take place between the TRAI and the government, or the TRAI and other regulators. So that's not really something which I discuss. If there is a communication, we responded back, and that's the end of the story. So I do not want to...
Fair enough. It's a test, I think, for the domains of the two regulators.
I mean, let me not comment at all on that, because that's not the way I function. I don't really talk about the communications between TRAI and the government, or the TRAI and other agencies of the
If you'll just allow me one last question, how do you think it could be resolved? Will, like, for example, the Prime Minister's office need to get involved?
No, as I said, I don't want to comment
I'll
on
accept
that.
that. Mr. Sharma, the other one I want to ask you about is what we're seeing with Apple. You're saying they're being anti-consumer. They're not putting your Do Not Disturb app on the iOS, unlike Google and Android. When we spoke to Apple, they said they will not stand down. So how can this be resolved?
What do you mean they will not stand down?
They're not, I mean, you've also seen for a long time, you've not seen the app, right? And you've been talking to them, and when we checked with them, they said, you know, it's not happening.
So no, that's okay. That's not happening. What do you want me to say?
No, are you going to take any measures on that?
No,
How
as
can
I
it be
said, we have
resolved?
not contemplated any action as such. We have thus far, what we have been saying is that, look, there is an application. The unwanted commercial calls is an extremely serious problem. It irritates everybody, and certainly it must be irritating Apple's customers also. So we had prepared an application in order to ensure that customers are easily able to complain about the unwanted SMSs or unwanted commercial calls to the regulator and also to the telecom service providers. This was an app. Now this app has been obviously integrated with the Android and other platforms. iOS platform, this has not been able to be integrated. We had been talking to Apple, and since last 1 year they have been, you know, kind of, somebody is coming to attend meetings and then that fellow gets transferred and stuff like that. So that we have seen it all. Yeah. So since last 1 year there is no, you know, it's all dilly-dallying. It's just not, nothing is being done.
You know, connections with the Aadhaar numbers, as the conversation in the Supreme Court has been. The telcos are also asking the consumers to give their biometrics. Why should a consumer give a biometric to the telecom company? You know, we have all this conversation, especially these days, around privacy, about data. As a regulator, are you going to talk to the telcos about this?
No, I think there is a misinformation on this issue. Let me be very clear. Aadhaar took biometrics, UIDAI, and then, you know, I was the DG and mission director of UIDAI for the 4 years. Aadhaar takes biometrics for purposes of generating Aadhaar to ensure uniqueness. Thereafter, the biometrics which are taken, they are essentially taken for matching, for authentication. And these biometrics are not taken by the telecom companies.
They're taking them?
No. If they are taking them, that's wrong. But essentially what happens, you authenticate that you are you. And this biometric, encrypted minutiae of this biometric go to Aadhaar database, where it is checked that it is you, and they confirm yes and no. Or they give your electronic KYC. That's how it happens. This is authentication. Today we are having 30 million authentications per day on Aadhaar database. 30 million.
Mr. Sharma, I assure you that telcos are asking consumers to come and give their biometrics. They have the machines for it.
When you say give their biometrics, it's essentially they are asking them to authenticate.
So they don't have to, so no, they're not keeping a copy of it?
No, they certainly cannot. They certainly cannot.
Because that's an area of concern. If
no, they cannot. They cannot. They have no authority to do that. If somebody is doing it, it is illegal.
Okay, so that's good to know, because consumers, we get feedback that they don't want to go.
Consumers are just authenticating with Aadhaar database and then directing the Aadhaar authority to give their electronic KYC, which should go into the database of the telecom service providers, which will ensure that there is no paper customer acquisition form. All the papers can be destroyed, and this can be a digital database, which is a verified database that this actually belongs to this phone, this connection belongs to you.
Mr. Sharma, as I wind down the interview, I'm just going to go back once more to the financials of the companies. Like I said, the SBI chairperson has raised worries about debt. You've had some companies declare very small profits also on light of what's going on. Do you continue to buy the argument that there is going to be erosion of revenues, there's going to be erosion of profits?
I have no comments to offer on that, as I explained to you. Whatever as a regulator we have to do, we are doing and will continue to do. But I don't want to express my views and opinions about the overall.
So you're right on top of it. The way the finance minister said, you will not allow the death of this sector.
What do you mean? We are here to see the growth of this sector. And I'm very, very sure, I'm very optimistic, and happy the sector is going to grow. Look, India is all connected, 1.2 billion, connections. Everybody is talking to everybody else. We are generating 11 billion minutes of traffic every day. Now there is a next phase. The next phase is a data phase. And data is the new, sort of engine, new oil for this machinery to function. And we are doing very well in data. And that phase is really going to become very exciting. In fact, the other day I was talking to some of the telecom service providers and I said, look, many industries have this demand issue, that they are producing something and people are not buying. Have you ever had any demand issue? No. People are buying. And so there's no demand constraint. And with a population of 1.2 billion, people are just, using data, and data has grown. The data use has grown. So I think we are going to see exciting times in this industry. Why are you making the prognosis that, the death, etc.?
So no gloom and doom.
Don't use these terms.
No gloom, doom. No gloom and doom.
Not at all.
Mr. Sharma, thank you so much for talking to us in ET Now. It was a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/ETNow and don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at ETNowLive. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/ETNow.